So with our approach, that we're talking about today, we didn't just conduct a bunch of research into cognitive factors of vaccine hesitancy and vaccination intentions for descriptive purposes, but because the understanding of those biases and those cognitive factors helps give us an evidence-based, prescription or roadmap for which interventions should be effective. And then when we implement interventions, we monitor and evaluate their effectiveness in order to update our approach with that latest evidence to really make sure that we're on the right track. So when we move into kind of basic BE foundations, there's kind of general evidence-based principles or foundational principles of communication that we can pull from behavioral economics. And it is worth mentioning these because they are important concepts to keep in mind as things that can probably be applied very broadly across most interventions. But then when we offer, and these are written about in our report, you can read a little bit more about them. These are things that probably some things, you may have already heard. Let's try and be concise. Noah did a great job talking about not just relying on these cold hard facts and then putting the onus entirely on the person who's listening to them to interpret them correctly and to, assume that somehow during, as Adam touched on as well, during this intense mental health situation that we're all in, that people are going to process them, free of emotion. That's an unfair ask of people. So, but then we can, what we offer in the subsequent sections are strategies where we can start kind of moving into the next level up of things that we can think about and want to consider for what might be tailored to, the specific vaccination intention segment, the specific cognitive factors that are relevant for each of these vaccination intention groups. So we know from our research that individuals who report that they are planning to get the vaccine as soon as it is available to them, they are scoring higher than other people, right, in trusted institutions, scientific knowledge, and are much more receptive to empirical data. So these are the people who have been responsive to a lot of the regular initiatives that are out there right now, just putting the information out there and saying, trust us, this is right. But we do also know that these are just stated intentions, right? So we can't take for granted that everyone who today or on the date of this survey said that they will get a vaccine will actually follow through next week, 2 months, 6 months from now, hopefully sooner than later. So there is still a very real risk that a lot of these people will backslide on their intentions. And we know there's a host of barriers to not only maintaining these intentions, but converting them to action when the time comes, right? We have the risk of the free rider effect. So people know it's important to know that people need to do it. But when it comes to it, enough other people will. I would do it, but I don't really have to, right? That's you can kind of think of it as the bystander apathy as well, and there's regular procrastination, and let's be honest, no one likes needles, right? So there's lots of those kind of things that get in our way. So when we start thinking about strategies that we really want to move beyond just directive, information messaging, is we want to empower these individuals to hold strongly to those vaccination intentions. And then, also by doing so, create a social proof situation where they potentially sway some of the on the fence people as well. And then at that same time, design messaging and environments that are going to convert those intentions to actions when the time comes. So as an example of putting that into action, empowering these individuals to make public commitments, works towards achieving both of these goals. You'll strengthen and solidify their resolve to vaccinate. People don't want to go back on their word, right? If you've publicly proclaimed yourself as a supporter of something. And it does also serve to create that social proof environment, to create help create a safe space. So it's not about being a debater. It's about, and necessarily saying these people need to go out and actively take up some sort of torch, but it's about creating positive social signaling that helps individuals feel more comfort, safety, and security in vaccination. So to that end, one of the initiatives we're unveiling right now, as you can see on the slide, are social media badges, start building that social proof and that social signaling. So then when we move into our on the fence individuals, these are those people who truly, those undecided voters who truly could go either way. And let's remember that, inertia is working against us. Doing something is generally harder than doing nothing. So the easier path is not getting vaccinated. So these individuals are generally, have the opportunity to being swayed by some of the people in the opposed group, and we do want to help them end up on the healthy side of the fence. So we can, simplify and describe that there's kind of two main factors of our sources of hesitation in the on the fence group. So concerns about the science, concerns about risks surrounding the vaccine, risks surrounding the medical, establishment, and some sway from opening the doors to conspiratorial thinking. So scientific concerns are very reasonable. As a scientist, I have them on a daily basis. It's actually my job. So we applaud everyone's curiosity and skepticism about science. I think skepticism is truly one of the most important things in being a scientist. Curiosity is a good thing. The issue comes up with where these people in their concerns are turning to for expertise and information. And that part is a little bit broken. So supplying these people with data and scientific information from government and what we consider to be the traditional knowledge producing institutions is going to, continue to do little to accomplish attitude change, because there's a lot of mistrust for various reasons that we can all, talk about later when we have a lot of time. That is its own conversation. But very mistrust in the sources of those information. So the conversations we want to have with people, the ways we want to engage with people, the messaging we want to send, the environments we want to create, it's not about just resolving, as Noah touched on, resolving concerns for vaccine safety by saying, oh, this, oh, that, and providing information, but including talking about the sources of that mistrust, right? It's not a battle of what's true and what's not true. It's about understanding where the communication and where frequently the disenfranchisement is coming from, right? Building some empathy around that and really actually trying to do something to solve some of the distrust in those institutions. For a clear example that is certainly relevant in Canada, and there may be parallels with either the same or other communities in your home country, let's not just be aware of the ongoing disenfranchisement of Black and Indigenous Canadian citizens, but let's make sure that we are paying strong attention to their perspective, to the perspectives of those communities, and incorporating those perspectives into strategies in order to help people who are some of the most vulnerable in our countries stay healthy. So with these individuals as well, the on the fence group, what we're seeing in a lot of their responses is that there's a gap. There's been a failure of the systems, of the environments that they've been in. There's a gap, there's a deficit in media literacy and critical thinking, education, and skills. And this has left too many people in a place where they're missing those, technical chops to know what is good information and what is bad information. And again, we can talk about how we got there, but it is a product of obviously, certain environments. Who to trust who a good source is compared with, someone else who's telling you things you want to hear, but maybe they have ulterior motives and they're giving fake information. So take that foundation of thinking style and compound it with the emotional fear of the pandemic times. And we've ended up in a situation where a lot of people are using, cherry picking and motivated reasoning. So motivated reasoning is people develop an attitude through intuitions, emotions, and gut responses, and then they're motivated to find specific pieces of evidence that support that particular attitude. So public health leaders need to go deeper into their, scientific communication expertise to serve as that broker between the information and the citizen, and help build those connections. Repeating evidence is not going to be effective for these people because it fails to address, the underlying reason for why they're processing the information in a biased way in the first place. So some of the strategies that, we also want to consider with this group is, obviously then in the first place we can start thinking of is, where does the trust still lie, right? So Noah talked about this as well, having messages that are, most appropriate for who they're aimed for, delivered by, individuals and organizations that they do trust. We also found that vaccine hesitant individuals will benefit from strategies that really appeal to their self-concept as someone who makes their own decisions. I am a rational, independent thinker, and people don't tell me what to think. I choose what to think. They want to do their own evaluations, and they want to come to their own conclusions. Feeling that way is very important to them. This group strongly reported that they're concerned that the vaccine isn't safe, but they want to do their own research, but they haven't had the time. So while they may not actually want to spend hours and hours and hours doing that research, they certainly want to feel like they've done their due diligence. They're signaling that they want to have that feeling in themselves, and they want to feel like they've made their own decision. So providing them with tools that simplify that process for them while still helping them feel like they have, made empowering progress to that end should be quite effective. Biased and motivated reasoning is making some of these members vulnerable to conspiracy theories. So we do need to engage with them, not as a battle again, but it's really about trying to understand where their deep mistrust and disenfranchisement is coming from and building some empathy around that. So if we move to the opposed individuals, we can start out by saying that we don't want to engage with these individuals in a shaming way or coming at them like we're trying to battle some misinformation and we are going to convince them they are wrong. This is just going to continue to fracture our families and our communities. So as difficult as it may seem initially, we want to start with that same concept of perspective taking and empathy and try to connect with people and understand their positions of grievance that are born from something they have going on, their social, their economic instability, their perceptions of things that are important to them in their lives that are askew and not working out for them, and that is making them vulnerable to opening doors to alternative things that are providing them with some comfort. So these people do believe that the things they believe that it's mind control, it's a ploy for population control. They believe these things very, very strongly. So coming at messaging with them saying immediately from the standpoint of you're wrong is not going to be as effective. There are people in this group who are looking for answers, and help and comfort are looking for help and comfort is causing them to end up as victims of other people who are waging misinformation wars. So we want to take an approach of engaging with the goal of connection rather than just taking the mindset of engaging with change to, yes, increase their receptivity to information. We do ultimately want to have them, take consideration new information, but also minimize how actively they're engaging in the spread of misinformation and attempts to sway those who are on the fence. Right, by reducing their desire to use some sort of platform as an emotional outlet for the stress and frustration that they feel. So on that note, I know we have a lot to talk about. I covered a few things briefly. I'm so excited to engage in any conversations with anyone else, either on the topics I talked about or other avenues. And Warda is going to tell us about more opportunities for, putting some of these principles that I outlined into concrete specific actions and tailoring them for specific situations and populations.